Well, I'm not sure where Mr. Wolf is, but we'll go on. He'll catch up. You'll notice, so we've gone through most of the things in here. So there's 4 more, and then we're quickly going to go over the browser bomb stuff. And when I say quickly, you believe me, I do mean quickly. So notice it says you can use the following node properties to navigate between nodes. So again, we're talking about relationships here. All right. So I can get to the parent at any time. I can get to a child node at any time. I can get to the first. You'll notice a lot of these will have first, or they will have last, or they will have next, or they will have previous. Okay. And hopefully just by looking at that, it makes sense. It says a common error in DOM processing is to expect an element node to contain text. All right. It says the element node there does not contain text. It contains a text node, which contains text. Is that big a thing? It can be, because if you don't reference something correctly, you're going to get back nothing. And so that can be important. All right. Again, I'm not going to run through the examples. I think we've run through enough of them in here. We've talked about inner HTML. Notice there is a node name property. Notice that node name is read-only. What does that mean? Of course, you can't change it. All right. The node name is the same as the tag name. So there's a lot of different stuff you can do with this. What we're talking about doing here is being able to fully harness the power. You're taking control over the web page. What's displayed on it, how it's displayed, etc. There's node value, there's node type. All right. We've looked at some of this, so there's examples here on how you can create new nodes. And so notice what they have here, kind of a neat example. All right, and you'll see some of these in just a couple minutes when we go over some of these DOM examples that I had you, or that I emailed to you. So what do we have? We've got a paragraph. We got a couple paragraphs here. This is a paragraph. This is another paragraph. Then we come in and we create a brand new paragraph element. We add text to it that says this is new. We append it so it goes right on the end, so it goes after the last paragraph. All right. So again, this is an example of how you can add a node to an existing document. And they go through it maybe better than I did. Remember, when you use append, it goes on the bottom. If you use an insert before, then you tell it where you want it to go. All right. So notice what they've done here is they use an insert before. They say grab that paragraph and put it before child. All right. And basically what they're saying is they want it to go up on top. All right. So again, you've got some control over where things go. And as we talked about, you could do a remove child to remove something. An example of that, now, if somebody goes out to your website and you ask them their age, they may lie, correct? There's nothing to stop them from lying. But it's kind of like when you go to the movies. I remember, because they don't have the same rating system anymore they had when I was your age. But back in those days, it was cool because when you got to be 17, you could see R-rated movies. All right. Then when you got to be 21, you could see X-rated movies. All right. Now, hell, I go into an R-rated movie and there's little kids walking around in there. Because now, if their parents decide to bring them in, typically they can't. I don't even know if there are X-rated movies anymore. And honestly tell you, I've never seen an X-rated movie except at my bachelor party. All right. It's the only time I ever remember seeing one that I would consider to be X-rated. But you can remove things. So in other words, you could ask a person their age. If they said they were under 17, you might remove some of the content that might have shown later on the page based on their age. All right. And what I like is every time they give you an example, when they start getting more complex, they explain everything that's going on in the example. You can do a replace, and in the example here, they're literally replacing text. All right. Remember, because this is one of the questions, or maybe it was on, I don't remember if it's on your next test or you had it already, but what's an HTML collection? All right. It really, as it says, the get elements by tag name returns a collection object. For example, a collection of paragraphs. All right. A collection of list items, but they're all items of the same type. All right. And they give an example of a by tag name. Collections have length, so you can go through them. Notice what they're doing here. This is a collection. It's not an array, but you can use it like an array. So some array properties you can use on collections. Some you can't. Chapter 8, which we'll go through in a couple weeks, Chapter 8 is on some additional array methods that we have not yet talked about, and some additional string methods. And then finally, you've got node lists. So what's a node list? It's a collection of nodes. That's a surprise. All right. So if you want to be able to, it says, all browsers return a node list object for child nodes, query select all. So again, you can go in and you can grab just certain nodes. You can iterate your way through every node. You can find out how many nodes you have. And here, kind of an interesting thing down towards the bottom here, the difference between a collection and a node list. A collection is a collection of HTML elements. A node list is a collection of nodes. But you can use both of them. You can use array types of properties to go through to go through both of them. All right. And if that confuses, you look at it this way. With a collection, they all have to be the same type. With a node list, it could literally be every type that's in there could be different. All right, and then finally to finish this up, here's the browser object model, the BOM. Remember, that starts with the window object. We already talked about this. So we've talked about this too. Remember, you don't need to put the window in there. So to say window.document.getElementById is the same thing as saying document.getElementById. In other words, anytime we've used prompt, we could have said window.prompt. Anytime we use alert, we could have used window.alert and it would have still worked. Because the prompt method and the alert method are both methods of window. Since they are, you don't have to use it. You can. All right. Here's an example of, notice, it says this is my current browser. Width is 614, my height is 395. All right, now notice my height changed. And as I go down, my width will change. All right, I can hard code them in, or I can, all right, work with them. And when you think about it, when you start thinking about the height of your window, you don't have to do that, but just listen to this. You don't have to look, but listen. Do you realize how Bootstrap uses that? That's how it makes it responsive. It checks on the width of your window. And it says when the width reaches a certain point, oh, now you're basically in tablet mode. When it gets narrower than that, oh, now you're basically in phone mode. That's how it does it. It works with the width of your window. And there's other things that you can use with them too. We've looked at some of these. The screen that we talked about in class contains information about the user's screen, the height, the width, etc. All right. So notice it's telling me my screen width right now. And as I go in and change that, all right, the height and width can change accordingly. So again, there's height, there's width. Notice there's available width. Sometimes you might want to set it up so that your window, you've got some margin around the top and or bottom and or left and or right. So you can work with that with the available width and the available height. Location we've already talked about. There's not much you can do with location. So So the host name there, all right, well, that is where we came from, www.w3schools.com as an example. All right. You can work with paths, protocols, ports. This is a way you can start doing some browser sniffing. History, we've talked about. Again, not much to do here. You can go back, you can go forward, you can do a go to a certain, so you can go forward, you can go backwards, and you can go to a certain page. The navigator, this is the true browser sniffing. All right. So if you notice when I go into here, what do we got? It just got my cookies. All right, but you can work with the other stuff. I know that a couple of you had said that when you tried running at least one of the scripts that was in your book, it gave you the same answer on Chrome that it did on Firefox. It shouldn't, but I haven't run those types of scripts in a while. It used to be that when you ran something on Firefox, it would say Moz, which is short for Mozilla, which is short for Netscape, which is basically what Firefox came from. When you did Microsoft, it would come up and say that the browser you were using was MS for Microsoft. That may have changed over time. I don't know.
The next one explains why.
That one here? All right. Okay. Netscape is used for IE11, Chrome, Firefox, and Safari. All right. I didn't know that. Thank you. And I would guess that's sort of a salute. Back in the 80s when browsers first started, there was IE and there was Netscape. There wasn't anything else. That's when the browser wars started. IE1 because Netscape technically doesn't exist anymore.
So does that mean there's no way to actually figure out individually what?
I think you still can, but I don't think it's these properties anymore. All right. I'm not sure what it is, to be honest with you. Pop-ups we've talked about before. So when I click, there's a pop-up. You can do a pop-up. Most people equate pop-ups in JavaScript. Anytime you do an alert, you're technically doing a pop-up. This you may or may not have looked at before, so if you look at this, we've done alerts, we've done prompts. That's a cancel. I'm sorry, that's a confirm, because it's got OK and it's got cancel. So sometimes you'll ask a person something and, oh, I didn't mean to do this, so you give them the opportunity to cancel. That's a confirm as opposed to a prompt. All right, we're not giving information, or I guess a confirm as opposed to an alert. You can click cancel and it says which button you pressed. Or you can click OK and it'll tell you what button you pressed. Prompt we've already talked about. Line breaks with a \n we've already talked about. The timing events, if you're still confused on the set timeout, the clear timeout, the set interval, and the clear interval, they're in here. I'm trying to figure out a way for your next test that I can have you do some of this stuff. Not because I want to say, hey, maybe if I do this, Tony won't get it and I can screw him out of 5 points. No. It's nice that you're able to do some of this and work with timeouts and the like. So maybe we'll have a message come up on the screen and it'll disappear after 5 seconds. That kind of thing. Why? Because that is more reminiscent of the way that a lot of sites work. So there's a set timeout example here. It says, click a button, wait 3 seconds, and the page will alert hello. 1001, 1002, 1003. There it is. All right. So we've got what in there? We've got a set timeout. Notice that when you work with timeouts, they're with milliseconds. Does everybody hear that? Millisecond is 1,000th of a second. There's 1,000 milliseconds in a second. So if I wanted to really make this go long, I could change that to 10. So it'll work. But, again, 1001, 1002, 1003, 4, 5. Well, I guess they did faster, but you get the idea. All right? There are also examples of clear timeouts in here. Then there's a set interval example and a clear interval example. All right, and they even give you more. Here's a clock with timing events. And then finally, there's a thing in here on cookies. All right. Anybody know what cookies are? And I don't mean the kind you eat, okay? But you know what cookies are? Yeah, yes, that's an example. But to make it as simple as possible, what a cookie is it's a text file that a server writes to your machine. So for instance, when I go out to Amazon and I've got a bunch of books that I'm interested in, it'll write cookies to my machine. So the next time I go into Amazon, it'll say the last time you were here, you looked at these books. Or people who bought those books also bought this title book. Because it's all marketing, right? But you can read articles online where people have said, oh, get rid of your cookies. Cookies are evil. They're not executable files. They're text files. You can look at cookie files. Most browsers only allow you to put a certain number of cookies on the system. And cookies, by their very nature, they're limited to about a 4K length, 4,000 bytes. That's it. All right. Okay, so that's it for that. We're going to do one more thing, but we're still going to be done by 10. So I'm going to stop this.